Dirty Scrap Podcast.
Oh, my pleasure. I've been doing my research about what you do, and it's quite impressive. This podcast idea is more on the sustainability side of the aluminum and the recycling industry, but definitely through the years we've been expanding, let's say, the approach to too many different industries, and I think this is the right platform to share what you're doing right now. So before we go into the long way home and all these different stuff that I think is very excited, and mostly because I'm come from a third world country. I'm come from Colombia, and poverty is something that is on the every table of every family every day. So it's complicated. Now, are you back? Oh, sorry, we lost connection for a while. So I was saying that I'm from Colombia, and poverty is something that is the breakfast of a lot of people out there, and it is very sad. But having people like you, that you are seeing that issue and transforming the problem is something that can put faith in people again, is something amazing. So that's why I think this opportunity to share all what you are doing right now is just great. But before we move forward, I was a little bit impressed that, I mean, you're a teacher, right? And then you become something totally different. So I want to learn more about you and know your story and how you get involved in all this crazy journey, because I think I can see that it's very crazy. I think it's very thankful as well, right? But so let me get to know you a little bit more.
Okay. Bueno, hablo español.
Oh, really? Nice. Yeah,
Ajá.
because you're working in Guatemala, right?
Y vivía en Colombia, en Choachí, con Dinamarca, para casi un año,
Oh, ¿en serio?
en 2014. Qué belleza, Choachí.
Choachí. No
Choachí.
lo conozco.
Sí, está como una hora y media en el departamento de Cundinamarca.
Ok,
Yeah.
ok, va, qué bueno, qué bueno.
Pues, all right, a little bit more about me. My Spanish is not perfect, so
It is better
hablo,
than my English.
hablo español como campesino, porque en Guatemala la gente habla cachiquel, es como su primer idioma, y
Ok,
entonces ellos hablan como Don Corleone, muy despacio.
claro.
Entonces yo hablo español como Don Corleone. Uh,
No importa, no importa. No, but we can keep it in English. It's,
okay.
it's, it's not an issue. I am used to it. Actually, I started the podcast because at the beginning, when I came into this country, it was very complicated for me to get into the market. Being a Colombian guy, I thought that I had a good English when I was in Colombia, and when I get here, it was terrible. So for me, was okay. I'm gonna put myself in a very uncomfortable position for two different things. I want to improve my English, but of course, I was trying to get into the market, so I want to put my face on the side to very well-known faces so
Yeah.
people can start recognize me, right? So
Yeah.
that was the first approach, was on the commercial side, but then everything turned into what it is right now, that I am not using this as a commercial platform. I am
Yeah.
using it more to help the people out there to understand what's going on, what are the trends, and to get to let them know people like you that are doing a lot for the economy, for the industry, and mostly for the community. So yes, go ahead. Tell me your
Okay.
story.
So, and you said I'm a teacher. Like I own a school and I manage a school and I've done some teaching at a university, but
Okay.
mostly what I am is a builder and a nonprofit owner and manager, right?
Good.
So I've done some teaching, but I'm not like a professional teacher. I've not spent that much time in an actual classroom. So yeah, but the reason any of this ever happened was because I joined the Peace Corps,
Hmm.
right? And I was
Okay.
in Guatemala for the Peace Corps, and Guatemala, the Peace Corps is what brought me to Guatemala. And then I met a bunch of people in Guatemala, and basically that changed my entire life, right? Because in Peace Corps, they put you in a small village in the middle of nowhere,
Right.
and all of a sudden you're faced with things that you never had any idea that were going on, right? I
Right.
grew up in like a middle class suburban town in East Texas, so I was pretty sheltered as far as hadn't really traveled the world. And then I went to Guatemala. I saw everybody living in extreme poverty, and it changed my entire life pretty much in an instant. And at that point, I decided to spend the rest of my life doing something about the poverty that I saw. And that has brought me to Venezuela, Colombia, El Salvador. I've traveled to, done some work in South Africa. And
Okay.
so, yeah, because of this work, I have done quite a bit of traveling, met a lot of people, and will be doing this to one degree or another for the rest of my life.
Right. And let's dig more in that experience because I think people don't understand what shocking can be to live a regular life and thinking that okay, this is for everyone. Everyone has water, food on the table every day, and then you go to those countries or our countries because I'm from Colombia and I grew up in a really good family, middle class as well, but we always been involved with with people that has not too much, and we always try to help people. But definitely when you grow in, for example, United States environment,
Yeah.
going into those countries and realize that is very shocking. So I want you to elaborate more about your experience and what you saw that clicked your brain like this and
Yeah.
complete my mindset change.
Yeah, well, so when you go into the Peace Corps, they put you in a small rural town, right? And going from the United States to a middle class suburban neighborhood to a small rural town in Guatemala, everything changes. You've never even heard of anything like that because when most people travel, they go to the tourist towns, right?
Right,
And you
definitely.
don't necessarily see some of the difficulties when you're in the tourist towns, right? But when you go to the non-tourist towns and they're rural non-tourist towns, what you see is how hard life is for hundreds of thousands of millions of people.
Right.
Because as a Peace Corps volunteer, I also like hitchhiked around Latin America a lot. I mean, at least around Central America. So, you jump in a jalon in the back of a truck that's got agriculture, that's got watermelons or something in the back of it, and you are in the back of a truck with people, and you get to talk to them because I speak
Right.
Spanish. I get to talk to the people and find out what's going on. And so I've been to Honduras and El Salvador and Nicaragua and Panama, and I've traveled and I've talked to people. I hitchhiked from Guatemala one time all the way back to the States. So I've seen this, like, the combination of the poverty, but have also been blown away by like how wonderful everybody is. And that is something that I could really emphasize during this is like,
Right.
in small rural towns are some of the kindest, most loving, wonderful people that anybody will ever meet. And so that combination of seeing the poverty and then also meeting and getting to know all those people, it set me on fire. It's like, these are wonderful people that are really struggling and they're my brothers and sisters on this earth. And so I'm going to do something about it. And I won't stop until I've done more than too much.
Right. And now that you are saying this, I mean, it's very touching for me because what I'm seeing in the third world countries is not just poverty. I am seeing misery that is different.
Misery.
For me, the problem is not you are poor because poor is is mental state. You can get out of it. I mean, being broke is not the same thing as living in misery. That is what we have. I mean, and the funny, maybe funny is not the word, but the weird thing about it is these people is so kind. I remember that when I used to go on those neighborhoods because I help a family back in Colombia. We know them for a long time, and this girl wants to go to university and be someone and try to do something for their family. But now she's pregnant. She has two daughters already. Know that, so it's very complicated. But we are helping her. Why not? And one thing that was very shocking on a good way for me is they always said if we have food for two, we have food for three,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yes.
They don't mind. They just want to share. They want to be very warm. If you need to stay at their homes, they will give you the best room they have. They don't care. So it is fantastic that you went through this experience, and this experience changed your life. It helped, in the way that you are now changing people's lives.
Yeah.
So getting into that, let's say, new life approach, how do you start like doing things that, okay, let's do with recycling materials, this and that, because I want to get into the sustainability process that you are doing involving communities and everything.
Yeah, so whenever you're, it doesn't all happen at once. As much as
Right.
I say that I changed, right, and I had that happen to me, but it didn't happen overnight, right? The same thing with sustainability. Like when you're there and you're living there and you're experiencing it, like, I didn't like live in a really nice house in a tourist town, then occasionally visit. I moved to a town where people didn't have water, they didn't have electricity, and they didn't have firewood, and they didn't have enough food. And I did it that way because I wanted to be, like in the belly of the beast. And so
Right.
that was like the mother of invention for us, right? Because when you're living there and you don't have water, then you start getting really creative about ways to find water, and then you see the trash on the ground, and that is in your neighborhood. I'm living there, I'm with it, I'm seeing everything. And so I'm like, okay, I want to deal with all the trash on the ground. What can you do with this trash? And then
Right.
you're friends with the people in your neighborhood, and they're living within that space, and you see them every day and you see their struggles, and you become part of that neighborhood, you become part of those struggles, and those people they start to matter to you. And so as we were living there and dealing with how hard it is to live in a small rural town in the middle of nowhere,
Right.
ideas start popping. You begin to become really innovative and go, okay, there's not enough firewood. So what are we going to do? We're going to figure out how to get more people stoves that burn less firewood so they can save money, so they can be warm, so they can heat their food. What's the best design for that stove? Well, we have a design, but why not introduce it into the curriculum so that the students can start talking about the designs of those stoves? So, and the people that are dealing with those fires or they're dealing with those stoves, they're creative. When like
They are.
the people that live in those spaces, like they're really good at going, okay, I've got some lamina, I have some cinder blocks, I have this. How can I combine those things to make it work for me?
Yeah.
So, that combination of
Yeah,
learning
they,
from,
they need to figure it out,
they got to figure it out, right? And they
right?
do figure it out. And so we
In
learn from,
Oh, sorry, I just yeah. So you learn from all that process and you started putting everything together because when I get into this country, I've been flying back and forth from Colombia since I was very little. I was a child. So the States wasn't an understanding country for me. I understand very well United States, but for me when I got here was very interesting that, for example, once you have your cell phone broken, you just change it.
yeah,
In Colombia, you don't do that. You have something that will repair the phone or your TV, or you don't change your car every 5 years. It's just crazy,
fix
you
it.
know? So, because in Colombia or in this type of countries, you need to figure out how to survive. You have a lot of different ways to create different options for your life that can give you whatever you need. So, for how long you been working in Guatemala before you starting doing the approach that you are just taught about it?
It's like during Peace Corps, it's a couple of years, right? And so you're living in the village as a Peace Corps volunteer, and you're not working all that much. They give you a project, but my project was rural youth at risk, and so I formed like little youth groups, but I didn't actually work all that much.
Right.
So, but living there during the Peace Corps, you get to know the community. You get to sit and talk to the doña, right? But I mean, and I may not talk about this during the podcast because it's super controversial, but there was a genocide there, right? And so between you and
Yeah.
me, that changed everything for me. That was, I don't know how much you want me to talk about that, but that is where the big
You
difference.
can talk as much as you want. The idea here, and look again. The idea of this platform is allow people to know what is happening out there. Because we don't have too much visibility in
Right.
some of the things that really matters.
Yeah.
We are seeing a lot of Instagram and TikTok dancing people, and we are just scrolling down. But sometimes we don't take the time to sit down and say, hey, what the fuck is going on out there that really matters? Because, for example, I have this friend, Jessica Alexanderson. She is amazing. I don't know if you heard about her, but she has this proposal that started with a book. The
Yeah.
book name is The Girl Who Recycled 1 Million Cans.
Oh,
And
wow.
we help her with the Spanish version. She already released the second volume, But her approach is to go to every school in the United States, and she is teaching the kids how valuable is the recycling industry, to the point that they can make money, they can help the environment, but also they can make something about it that will help not just the community but also their pockets. So they
Yeah.
are doing and growing in that direction. Actually, my kid was to get involved more and more on the recycling side. But these type of approaches, I think, is very interesting to know because it's reality, and you need sometimes that reality just slap on your face for you to see the real deal here. Am I back? I don't know what's
Yeah.
happening with the internet, but what I was saying, that sometimes you need that reality just slap your face. So yes, I am very interested in knowing what happened there, that you said, fuck man, we need to do something.
Well, and so what I saw, because like the genocide that was in the town where I was living, happened mostly during the 80s, but went until
Right.
1996. And so I was there in 2002, so there wasn't a lot of time between when the genocide happened and when
Right.
I was there. And so I saw them exhuming bodies from clandestine grave sites, right? And then
Wow.
walking the skeletons through town in the main street on pieces of plywood, assembling the skeletons in the middle of town, right?
Wow.
So here I am, like a suburban person from Texas, and I started to read about it. And I was like,
Right.
why did this happen? And then I found out that our government was largely involved in the entire thing. And
Yes.
then I found out that we did it in Honduras, we did it in Nicaragua. We're going around the world talking about democracy, and then we're undermining democracies, because like that's what happened in Guatemala. And Guatemala had its first elected president in 1952. After how many dictators before that? What did the CIA do? They killed him, right?
Yeah.
And then they put dictators back in, and then anybody that was trying to fight that, then they got killed too. And then the genocide happened. And so I don't want to be I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to. My country did that, right? But I think we're better than that, because that's a few people that really were doing that. That's not the vast majority of Americans. The vast
No.
majority of Americans are better than that. However, that is our country that did that. And so it really started to matter to me. And I saw, because I would go for what she would do is she would, serve me a coffee and
Right.
then give me some pan dulce or something like that. And we would sit there and chat. And then she would show me her photo album, and I would, she'd be like, dead, 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 disappeared, disappeared, disappeared,
Oh,
disappeared.
really?
This happened house after house after house. Because when you go to the leña person, then you go to the person that sells pan, then you go to the person that's, because like it's not Walmart there. There's
Oh,
different
not at
people
all.
that sell different things. There's
Right.
individuals that have different little businesses. And when you walk in, you don't go in and buy something and leave. You talk to them for 45 minutes. They invite you into their house. They invite you into dinner. They invite you to the weddings, to the bodas, to the quinceañeras. And then you become part of it, and you hear the stories one after the next. And then I found out that my country's doing that. That changed everything for me. I was like, "Oh my God, that's terrible." And I'm gonna show the world that there's a better side of us. You know?
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, so you went there, you spent a couple of years, and then
Yeah.
you saw all these things that was involving United States government, but also was involving the people, that has nothing to do with all this bullshit that sometimes you need to go through it just because,
Yeah.
and then you decide, okay, I want to do something. Then I understand that your approach is in, maybe I am wrong, but it's three directions. So education, right, is one
Yeah.
of those, and then you have everything related to community, and then you have everything related to building, right? I want to understand very well how to do it, or how do you do the three different approaches, and also I want to understand when you think or you talk about it. Hey, let's use the recycling side of whatever business it is and start putting here, because I think at the end of the day, what you probably saw is, okay, what is the cheaper way to make this community to get involved into something that is meaningful for them, but also will help them to improve their quality life, right?
Right. That's exactly what happened. And we saw that there was a huge need for infrastructure, for
Hmm.
basic infrastructure. But then we also saw that there was a whole bunch of trash on the ground, and we didn't have an unlimited budget, right? So we had a, when I started at Long Way Home, I raffled my 73 Caprice Classic convertible. That's how we got our first money. And then we had
Shut up.
small donation, huge donor or huge grant or anything like that. We had to figure out how to make all this work with a very small amount of money that we were
Right.
dealing with. And so when you're like, okay, we want to build a house, but we don't have endless bags of concrete or endless bags of cement. So let's take these tires that we're finding on the ground and let's figure out how to build a house out of tires, because you have tires, you have dirt, and you throw a little bit of dirt and you throw dirt in the tire, then you can build walls, and then you can do the all of the walls for a minor amount of money. And then
Right.
employment was another big part of that equation, because with employment, you're also talking, people need jobs there.
Oh,
That's what
definitely.
their need more than anything. The job market is absolutely terrible. And so we were like, all right, we're going to do
It's
construction.
zero. It's
Zero.
zero. And
It's zero.
the problem is when you have these communities that being hit by this violence, what you have is children that went through all this bullshit. And
Yeah.
what are you expecting from them? That they grow up and become businessmen? No, man. They're gonna kill someone in some point. It is what
Yeah.
it is. So you started thinking in that direction. Why tires? I mean, this is a model that you are copying from another country, or is something that you just said, why not? Let's try it.
So, my buddy, like, there were two of us in the Peace Corps that like really became friends, and he's an expert builder, right? And so, after we were building individual stoves and water tanks for families kind of in our neighborhood, because you walk in, somebody offers you some pun, you walk in and you see them cooking over an open flame indoors with kids, and I know how to build a stove. So I'm like, all right, let's build a stove for these people. So then we like decided, my buddy goes, hey, I said I want to build a school so that we can scale everything up. He
Right.
goes, he said, you want to build that school out of trash? And I was like, huh? What are you talking about? I have no idea what you're talking about. He showed me this book called Earthship Volume 1. So there was a group of people in New Mexico that wrote a book about how to build with tires. So we got that book
Okay.
out. We put that book on the ground. We packed the first tire based on that book. And then we did another one and we did another one. And then they invited us out to New Mexico to check out their scene and how they're doing it. And so we sort of like figured it out little by little. But it's like, basic construction concepts. When you
Right.
have a tire, like a cinder block, everything needs to be plumb and everything needs to be level. And if you know the basics, you can apply the basics of construction to using trash. And so we like kind of tied, because I did construction growing up too. And so we tied the basics of construction, then applied it to trash, and then, figured it out little by little. And books. There's a book on how to do finishes. There's a book on how to do arches. There's a book on how to do vaults, right? So we got developed a library and figured it out. And then a lot of trial and error, because there's not a lot of people that are doing this in the way that we're doing it. So we had to fail a lot, right? And then, dust ourselves off and then keep going. And that's what we did. We figured
Right.
it out
And
along the way.
was the community involved since the beginning, or was just you and your body?
Well, me and my buddy, and then some other volunteers from the States, like, we started it,
Okay.
and but we're living in the community. So as soon as, there was like two or three of us, and then we go, okay, let's hire a local guy from the neighborhood.
Right.
And so then that guy jumps on the team, and he, of course, we can't do anything without that. How do you get it? Where is the
Right.
Arena de Rio? What, like, you work with the local people to figure out anything at all. So we hired local builders, and then we trained and worked with them to figure out how to do the trash. So they were part of it the whole way. In fact, our current foreman started with us in 2008, and he's still with us.
Oh, really? Oh, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
And how long was there? I mean, when did you started this approach, and when did you build the first one?
So we started practicing on a house for a local family because
Mhm.
we needed to pilot it. We needed to figure it out. And that was
Right, right.
2008.
You need the guinea pig.
Right. And we put the roof on our last classroom in May. Right. So we've been working on one. Now, along the way, we've built houses and schools in different parts of the world because we figured out how to do this. Other people in different parts of the world who wanted to learn how to do it as well have
Right.
hired us. Right. And so we've traveled a little bit and gone around the world to teach people how to do this while we were building the school.
How
So
that people get to know you?
website, Facebook, like we had a couple of workshops, and then people
Hmm.
come to the workshop, and then while they're at the workshop, they go, "Hey, do you want to come to South Africa for 6 months and help us build a couple of buildings at an orphanage?" I'm like, "Of
Wow.
course." So we even got to bring some of the Guatemalans from our crew to South Africa to show, you've got like 6'3" South African guys, and then the Guatemalans are like 5'1". Nobody really speaks the same language, but the language of construction, the language of fun, we're all able to work together. And the Guatemalans got to go to South Africa for a fairly extended amount of time.
Wow. I cannot imagine how happy that people was there. I mean, it's just touching hearing you talking about this. It is, I don't know. I mean, for me it's I am lack of words because I've been not through this, but I know how it is. I know people that is going through a lot of difficult times, and knowing someone like you that is taking a step forward and using materials that are trash for a lot of people to build people's life is just amazing. Saying that, let's talk about the sustainability point of view. Let's dig into what long way homes or what was yeah it's long way homes are doing it, and what are the materials that you are using the most, and why those materials, and what other materials you think that you can reuse as well.
Well, so as I was mentioning, like there's a lot of trash on the ground. I'm sure it's the same way in Colombia in the small towns. There's not any system to remove trash from the
No,
houses. They don't
no.
have enough money for hospitals and schools, so of course there's not enough money to like really, really deal with the trash really well, and it's contaminating the water and contaminating the soil. So one of the things we used was tires.
Hmm.
Tires are wonderful because Guatemala is a really seismic region. You've probably heard about the volcanoes erupting, and
Yep.
Guatemala's had some real trouble with all of the seismic activity. And the cool thing about the tires is once you pack a tire, then you get this concept called thermal mass, and the
Hmm.
buildings maintain a constant temperature. So they're not too hot, not too cold.
Oh,
And whenever
interesting.
there's an earthquake, the rubber in the tire absorbs the movement of the earthquake, and so rather than rigid buildings that have rebar and
Right.
concrete, the tire buildings move with the seismic activity rather than resisting it. And when there's resistance, you get cracks, right? And so that's when buildings fall. That's when buildings crumble.
Right. Right.
So the top kinds of shapes,
Right.
right? Because in architecture, it's the thought is round is sound, right? The math behind making things round means that there is going to be less chance for it to fall. And
Hmm.
so when you do earth bags, we did two-story earth bag building, which is basically taking a costal, which is a polyurethane sack, putting dirt in it, and then tamping it, and then making layers of the buildings as you go up, and then to a dome,
Uh-huh.
right? Then you do Ubuntu blocks. Ubuntu blocks are like if you take plastic and you compress it and then you put baling wire around it, you're basically making a cinder block, right? And then you put those in between columns because they're not structural. A lot of our students will bring in what we call eco bricks or trash bottles, and there's plastic bottles everywhere and little plastic wrappers everywhere. So what we do is we go, okay, please, when you come to school, take all the trash from your neighborhood, put it in a plastic bottle, and then so what we'll do is like do Adobe, and then we'll do then we'll do eco bricks, and then Adobe, and then eco bricks, and you can build that up into a dome type structure, and then you're getting, and then you can turn that into, into a structure. And so we're talking eco bricks, Ubuntu blocks, earth bags. There's also a lot of bamboo. So there's bamboo along the coastal regions, and people
Yeah,
have been building with bamboo for a really long time. But we also have to mix all of this with conventional materials.
definitely,
So
definitely.
we use cement, of course, and we use rebar, and we use the screws and nails and some wood, but there's not a lot of lumber available
Right.
because Guatemala is very deforested, especially in the area where we live. It's kind of cold in Comalapa, so people burn a lot of firewood, and so there's not actually that many trees. So what we do is look at what's available, look at what will have the least impact on the natural resources, and then try to like make decisions along the way about what will be best for the community, and then like who's going to replicate it. Like, so we saw that tires are easier to use for retaining walls. The
Hmm.
biggest thing that people have taken on are the retaining walls. If you drive around Guatemala, you will see far more retaining walls built out of tires than you would ever
Oh,
think are
really?
possible, because the retaining walls are perfect. If you take a tire and you
Uh-huh.
fill it with dirt, and then it weighs like 2 quintales, it's like really heavy.
Right.
That compared to doing a retaining wall out of cement and rocks and stuff, well, the cement and rocks decomposes and it goes away and it crumbles. Tires are an amazing way to build a retaining wall, and they
That
never
makes sense.
decompose. They last forever, and you can do it little by little. If you're a poor family and you want a retaining wall, you could do 5 tires this weekend and then 5 tires next weekend, and you could get the tires for free here and there, and then you could ultimately build an entire retaining wall without having spent a single penny, which, if you use conventional materials, is not possible.
No, it's not. How many houses did you build so far in Guatemala?
Um, I mean, you know, so like the campus, when we're building the campus, we're building classroom structures. Now, the
Okay.
classroom structures are models, right? Every one of the classroom structures on our campus is slightly different. And we were practicing that so that we could use those models to later build houses. So over the last 20 years, we've probably built, I don't know, 15, 16, 17 houses. We've built a couple of health clinics. After that huge volcano eruption, we built a
Right.
health clinic near Volcan Fuego, and a couple of schools here and there. So, right, we had to spend a lot of time perfecting it, and we did that at the campus. But now we're ready to ramp up the entire thing and really start building more houses and classrooms and more infrastructure. So, yeah.
Interesting. Let me ask you something. Now that you are talking about classrooms and students, what is the hero school education model approach? I think it's very interesting to understand.
Yeah, can you imagine we named a school Hero School, right?
Yeah,
um,
because when I introduced this name to my kid, he was like, "Oh, it's like a superhero movie," and I was like, "No, no, no, but probably it's something better." So let me dig in and understand.
well, so, there's like in a town like Comalapa, there are tens of thousands of people living in poverty.
Right.
And the mayor's doing what he can, but it's not enough to deal with the misery that you and I were talking about. And so we want to take on as much of that as we possibly can. And so our education model is like, we're no longer going to do abstract education. We're
Mhm.
going to we're going to set up the education model so that when students need to learn the basics, but we're going
Mhm.
to contextualize everything that we do at the school into a way to help the community members. So now in the seventh grade, we no longer do abstract seventh grade work. They're at school to do hero stuff. The hero stuff that they're learning is how to build a stove for a family. So in math class, they talk about the stove and and or I'm sorry, in math class, what they do is they use their math to think about the stove. In social studies class, we'll go out and conduct surveys to figure out who needs what. In science class, we talk about what's happening within the stove, right? So everything in the seventh grade is based on a stove, and then we together go out and build stoves. So, like in May,
Mm-hmm.
200 of us walked out of the campus and went and built 6 stoves for the people in the community that are living in the worst conditions, right? And so the students then are doing heroic work because to build 6 stoves and 2 water tanks and a retaining wall and everything that we're doing, it's heroic work, right? That
It
the
is.
students are actually pulling off. And then who else is going to do it, right? That
Right.
town needs heroes like you see in the comic books. It would take a hero, it would take Superman, right, to go into that town and fix everything because nobody else is doing it.
No, actually, you need the real heroes down
Right,
there.
right. And
And
the kids love the idea of heroes. They nobody will say I am a hero, but they love the comic book concepts of heroes, and we can feel it inside of us. We all
definitely.
want to be heroes.
And they are saving people as well. I mean, they are making people life better, and that's what heroes does, right? It is what it
That's right.
is.
That's
And
right.
who is supporting from the financial point of view this approach? Because I mean, everything sounds great, and yes, let's help people and let's do it. But at the end of the day, it's time, it's resources, it's money. And I just want to get to know a little bit more about who is behind scenes because obviously the idea of this platform is also, hey man, let's do it and let's try to get people involved. Am I back? I'm back.
Yeah.
Okay. So the idea is to get people involved and being the hero and help the kids to keep in the same direction right now.
Yeah, so it's like, that's the hardest part for us because if we had
Right.
enough money, we could mobilize hundreds, thousands of people. That's really the only limiting factor for us. But so we have an earned income model, and before COVID, that earned income model was going really well. So while we were building the campus, we're
Hmm.
also inviting people from all over the world who have the money to travel all over the world and like volunteer. And so like there's a lot of people who are like, I want to go to Guatemala, but I don't only want to do tourist stuff. I want to get
Right.
off the beaten track. I want to get into the
Ah,
smaller places and I want to learn sustainable living techniques,
right.
right? And so they come to our campus, they pay us $85 to live on our campus or live in our volunteer house. And then during the day, they volunteer with us and we teach them sustainable living techniques. And so service groups would do that. Volunteers would do that because there's some people that don't want to go to Daytona Beach for their spring break. They want to go to
Right.
Guatemala and do some service work. Well, we offered that to universities. And so we charge people to do that. We don't charge them very much, but the money that they paid us is how we basically paid for everything. And then those people become our board members. Those people become our donors because they've been there, they've seen it, they really start to care about it. And then on top of that, we've gotten a few grants. Like we won the 2023 UNESCO Award for Education for Sustainable Development. That was $50,000. F5 is another amazing company out of Seattle. They gave us $50,000 last year. There's multiple foundations that have been helping us along the way. The Henderson Foundation out of East Texas, they've been endlessly generous with us. So we've pieced it together, right? We
Right.
have the students bring us the trash. That cuts down costs. We don't have high overhead either. Like we don't have big offices anywhere. We don't have cars. We don't have a lot of the expenses that make it difficult to focus on the program services. We have a really small paid staff of people. I mean, we have 25 teachers, and they're all
Mhm.
Guatemalans, and we have
Nice.
builders, but we piece it together little by little. And right now we're struggling because, we have big ambitions and don't really have all the money we need to make all of it happen. So we're
Right.
struggling right now.
Okay. So definitely I want to encourage the audience that is out there and so definitely I want to encourage the audience that is watching or will watch this episode, to get involved. It is
Yeah.
something because everyone is talking about sustainability, but I think no one is, or not everyone, not we are just thinking about sustainability with like this mindset that we need to recycle to can make money out of it in a huge industrial sector.
Yeah.
And I think it's more than that. And it's something like this. If we go in the direction that you are going right now, definitely we can help more and we can be more sustainable. Because at the end of the day, for me, sustainability is not just recycling, it's making people life better in the ways that you never imagined. So I want to encourage and I want to invite everyone that is in this podcast to get in touch with you where they can reach you out.
lwhome.org is our website. And then there's, MATT at lwhome.org is my email address. They can call me, they can email me, they can come and volunteer, they can donate. I have made us easily accessible.
Right.
There's Facebook, there's there's a million different ways to contact us.
Right. So I will share my screen. This is your website. I think it's amazing. People, look, this is what Long Way Home is doing right now, is helping the people with trash and with recyclable material that in some point they just go out there and do contamination in our oceans and everything. So I think it is impressive what you are doing. So people, get into this website, dig in, and let's build something together that I think can really, really help not just the industry, but also people that is lacking for a lot of different things that we have. Now, what is the next step? If you can reach more people and more, if you can find someone that can put some money there and merge people together to grow, what is the next step?
This is when it gets really exciting, right? This is when I have a hard time holding back as exciting as I think all of this is. So, you're asking about like the education model. So whenever I think of sustainability, I think of immediate, short-term, mid-term, and long-term effects. Right? We can go out and recycle and collect everything that's there, but you need to make it a generational effect for it to work, for it to extend into the long term. And so that's why we integrated all of this into the education model to start to create habits in students. So school is the perfect place to work on this stuff. And if you can contextualize the education into sustainable development, then you can make it fun, you can make school relevant, you can make it interesting, engaging, and this is a beautiful opportunity. Now, what's going to happen with us working through this at school is, let's say there's thousands of people living in what we were calling misery. Hero School alone is not going to get there. It's not going to get to all of those people fast enough. So we wrote lesson plans. We're going to share those lesson plans with the other public schools, and then they're going to use our lesson plans, and they're going to build stoves. They're going to build water tanks. They're going to do all of this too. So instead of it being a couple working together to build all of this infrastructure for the people that need it most. And then how many towns are there in Latin America that are struggling with the same thing? They're endless, right? They're endless. And so what you end up is going, okay, then the next town over is going to go, what? You have lesson plans that can train our students to help us live more sustainable lives? We want that. Why not? And then so it can go from town to town, country to country. And then beyond Latin America, how many towns in the world are looking for a way to permanently integrate sustainable development into their education model so that the students can get involved with fighting the moral problem of our lives? I consider this a major moral issue.
It
is that our brothers and sisters are living in misery. And those of us that can do something about it, let's do something about it. And if we can turn it and do it at school, let's do it at school. That is a perfect opportunity. And that's why I'm yelling right now, because I'm really excited about how much potential there is to do all of this work at school and in turn give people a good education.
Sure. No, I'm totally agree. And definitely I will push forward to, help as much as I can. definitely with the people that I know, with the companies that I work with, that these companies that are 100% into the recycling side, I think they must to know these ideas and to help on these ideas, because at the end of the day, if you want to be coherent with what you are doing, you need to get involved in something like this. It's not just taking a piece of aluminum, melt it down, turn it into whatever it is useful for the people, and just sell it and make a couple of pounds or pennies, sorry, out of it. It's more than that. And I think these people has the power to help here. So to wrap up this episode, what is your call to action for that people that is out there and that will see this episode? Are we back? Oh, I'm
Yes.
sorry. I don't know what's going on with this internet today, but it is okay. We always need to get in, the obstacles. We need to jump the obstacles and just keep moving forward. So, what is your call to action for the people that is going to check this episode?
Well, if you're a big company, sponsor our school. We can deal with poverty on a massive scale, and we can start today. If you're an individual, come to our green building workshop. It's October the 20th to November the 15th. We're going to do the Indiana Jones version of what we do, which is go out to a small village, build a couple of primary school classrooms, unite the clans, unite people from all over the world to put their ideas together, donate to Long Way Home, volunteer with Long Way Home, join into this movement, join into this crew, and let's have some fun doing it, and let's deal with some poverty. And let's do it together.
Perfect, Matt. I really appreciate it. And I am thinking here out of my mind that I think we can make another episode with Jessica Alexanderson. So she's very, very involved into, schools and companies. And I think it's going to be for both of you guys really good to get in touch each other and just talk about it. We can develop whatever it is, but definitely, hey people, let's help. Let's move this forward. Matt, thank you so much for what you are doing. I appreciate your time here, and don't stop. Reach me out whenever you want. If I can help, I will do it.
I really appreciate this opportunity. We're good builders and we're good poverty fighters, and thank you for the publicity. That's what we need, is for people to know
Oh
about
no.
it. So thank you.
Oh no, mention it. I am more than happy to do it. And I will put on the description of the video. We will release this episode as fast as we can. We have other episodes that we supposed to release before, but I will give more importance to this one. So I will release it as fast as I can, maybe probably next week. So I will try to put a lot of people here, and on the description of the video, I will put all your contact, your website, everything.
Cool. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Oh no. Thank you for what you're doing. And again, don't hesitate to call me or send me an email. If I can help, I will do it.
It's an
Dirty
honor.
Scrap Podcast.